Hi guys, I hope you are good and having a productive time whenever you are. Now let's check the statement and the question that we are given today. We are given that f of x is equals to ax squared, where x is strictly greater than 0. Be careful, they didn't say x is greater or equals to 0. They said x must be strictly greater than 0. Then they say to us, determine the value of a if and only if f prime of 4 is equals to what? F inverse of 1. First of all, in order for us to answer this question, we must find the first derivative of our function and the inverse of our function. Let's start by finding the first derivative. Remember something, if I have f of x is equals to ax squared, in order for me to find the first derivative, I must derive my original function. Remember, when we derive, we work with one rule, which is exponent multiplied by coefficient, exponent minus 1. In other words here, if I find my first derivative, which is f prime of x, this is always going to be equals to, here, what is exponent is 2. What is coefficient is a, meaning I'm going to say 2 multiplied by a, which is what? 2a x to the power of 2 minus 1. In other words, my first derivative is given by what? Is given by 2a x to the power of what? Of 1. But remember something, they said we must find what? F prime of 4. Meaning when I see x, I must substitute what? Positive 4. Meaning here it will be what? F prime of what? 4, which is equals to what? 2a multiplied by what? By 4. Here, what is 2a multiplied by 4? Remember, we have like terms, which is what? 2 and 4. This means that I'm going to have what? 8a. Now, let's go to finding the what? The inverse of our function. Remember, once our given function makes, once they said to us, we must find the inverse. In other words, that function reflected about the line y is equals to what? X. In other words here, what do I mean is that if our function reflected about the line y is equals to x, this means that y is going to be equals to x and x is going to be equals to what? Y. What do I mean by that? Remember, f of x is given by what? Ax what? Ax squared. And I can write this function as what? As y is equals to ax squared. Now let's check something. Remember, our function makes reflection about the line y is equals to x, which means now that my x value becomes y and my y value becomes x. In other words, where I see y, I will substitute x. Where I see x, I will substitute what? Y. But I need to make y subject of the formula. When we make y subject of the formula, I'm going to have y squared is equals to x over what? X over a. But remember now, my y is equals to what? Plus or positive, plus or minus what? X over what? Over a. But here, I can see that I get two values of what? Of y. But I need only one value of y. Remember something, my domain of the original function f of x is equals to ax squared was strictly greater than 0. This automatically will make the what? The range of the inverse to be strictly greater than 0. In other words, here I will take y is what? Y is equals to positive square root of what? X over a. But remember, they said to me I must find f inverse of 1, meaning where I see x, I must substitute positive 1. In other words, here I have what? I have y is equals to what? 1 square root of 1 over what? Over a. And they said I must equate these two, meaning I'm going to equate what? 8a and square root of 1 over what? Over a, in order for me to calculate the value of what? The value of a. Now let's check something. I'm going to erase here. Remember, we need to equate 8a is equals to what? Square root of 1 over what? Over a. In order for me to solve for a, I'm just going to square both sides in order to kill the what? The square root. Here I will have what? 64 what? 64a, which is equals to 1 over what? 1 over a, meaning I have 64. Remember something, once I see fraction, I see equal sign, I remember cross multiply, meaning here I have divided by what? Divided by what? This is going to be a multiplied by 64a, which is 64a cubed. 1 multiplied by positive 1, which is 1. Then I will make a cubed the subject of the formula. This means that I have a cubed, which is equals to 1 over what? 64. In other words, my a is equals to 1 over what? 1 over 4. Thank you very much. This means that the value of a is equals to what? 1 over 4.
Mama ngiphelezele, mama